Welcome to the Equestrian Edge, the podcast where women of the West shine and saddle smart fitness reigns. I'm Brandy Bratton, your host and founder of Equestrian Edge Fitness. As a proud member of a third-generation equestrian legacy, RH Ranch and Equine Services, I strive to honor my family's dedication to this incredible lifestyle. Each episode features inspiring stories from trailblazing cowgirls who have triumphed over challenges with astounding grit and grace. We'll jump into their personal journeys within the rich tapestry of Western culture. Additionally, I'll have them share insights gathered from our individual sessions conducted through my specialized fitness program, Equestrian Edge Fitness, designed specifically for equestrians. Whether you're an accomplished rider or just taking your first steps into the Western world, there's something here for everyone. So join us as we aim to elevate your physical health and emotional resilience on your journey towards excellence in the equestrian and Western lifestyle. Get the edge. I have my guest who I feel is fierce but fun. And she tends to call herself very opinionated, but I tend to think she's more of a no-nonsense kind of gal, just like me. So, without further ado, we have Tabitha Smith. And Tabitha, are you ready to get this kicked off?
Heck yeah. Super
All right.
excited to do this with you.
Yes, I'm super excited about it too. Already, some of the days that we have shared together have been truly phenomenal and a joy for me. So, welcome.
Well, thank you.
All right. So, one of the things that I want to get into is this big ranch life exposure that you have had. Um, Tell me all about that. Tell me, what that happened when you were just a teenager, I believe.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Germany, in the very southern part of Germany, right at the foot of the Alps. And I moved here to the States with my dad when I was 11. And really, from the time I've got over here, I've always lived on ranches. Started out in a ranch in New Mexico, and then was around Colorado for quite some time, and ended up in Idaho for a while, where everybody tells me I lived in the banana belt. And anytime you've got to chop ice and have inches of ice, there ain't no bananas growing there. Is all I got to say. But then back down to Arizona, and I'm actually in New Mexico now for the first time, not on a ranch full time. So that's kind of been different because it's always been a part of my life since I've been here. But I can still claim I live out in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
which is an awesome part. But yeah, so definitely the ranch life and that lifestyle and atmosphere has really been my life for the past, quite a while.
So, did you enjoy that life?
I did. I think, me personally, I think there is nothing better. The cowboy community. I spent a lot of time day working, so I was around a lot of cowboys and around a lot of older cowboys, and that community and that background and those ethics and just a lifestyle. You don't find it anywhere in town. It's just it's the best. I think it teaches you a whole different level of busting your butt and working in all
Yeah,
hours.
I was going to say a lot of hard work there, a
It
lot
is.
of butt busting for sure.
Yes, definitely. And you definitely don't want to look at what you get paid versus the hours you spend working, because that'll sure as heck depress you. But there's no other lifestyle. It's, in my opinion, the best. And
Do you have a story of one of those butt busting days?
do you want a good day or a bad day?
Let's stick with the good.
Well, there's so many good ones. But this is not an entirely bad one, and I guess I'm going to go there. But the running joke between everybody that knows me is the fact that um, I was born at the foot of the Alps, which means winter and snow. And having lived in Colorado and Idaho and everywhere, I've always had winter. And I tell you what, when it gets below 70 degrees, I'm about ready to die. I get the heated vest out and everything. And everybody always asks me, I'm like, how how did this happen? You grew up in the cold. How did you get to where you so don't like the winters? And if I have to pinpoint it to one thing, and I should have looked up what year it was, but it was quite a few years back, and we had synchronized a whole bunch of cattle to put embryos in. So it was a commercial herd, and we put club calf embryos in this herd. And so when you do this, you synchronize all these cows to cycle all on the same deal, and you put in all these embryos, and you try to get it condensed to its where it's all of these are gonna be calving within a pretty condensed time frame. So ideally all within 3 to 4 days. Realistically, it's all between, a week or 2 weeks. So we had spent all this time in the spring synchronizing cows, riding every day, just checking everything, got all this work done. And as luck would have it, we had a blizzard roll in when it was time to calve out all these boogers. And at the time at that place, there was an old barn there, and I had horses in it because, of course, me being the horse nut, the horses are in the barn. And it was actually a really nice house, which some ranch houses are a little iffy. This was a really nice house and a big one. And so this blizzard rolls in, and I swear all these mama cows got together, and there was over 100 of them. All these mama cows got together and went, now is the time to drop these calves.
Of course.
And we were out there with the pickup to start with. And then from there, it went to the backhoe, picking up baby calves as mama cows were dropping these suckers and just wandering off with the wind and the drifts and the snow and leaving these baby calves in the snow. So we were picking up calves left and right, trying to, as we were doing this, trying to put an ear tag in them to match the cow. And then I had calves everywhere. I had the ones that weren't so bad off in the barn. I had some partially froze ones in the bathtub, thawing them out with cool water. I had them in front of hair dryers, in the entryway, in the living room. It was a mess, but it was probably something that has always stuck to me. And it's such a reality of ranch life is
Right.
in that moment, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have shit all over the living room floor. It all cleans up. You do what you got to do in that instance, and you just get it done. And that probably weaned me off of winter completely.
Yeah, I can understand why.
I'm like, you know what? I don't need snow. Arizona sounds amazing, and hence I ended up in Arizona. But that was probably one of the things that stuck to me the most. And like I said, it's not entirely bad and it's not entirely good, but that's just the way it goes. And you just roll with it.
How innovative you guys had to be. I mean, because you think back to many, many moons ago when this could have happened, when there was no electricity and there were no hair dryers, and
Oh my God.
yeah. So you guys really had to pull out all the stops. Yeah,
It was a challenge, and it something I learned from it. You can actually drench a baby calf with a little bit of warm coffee, which will not only warm it up, but the caffeine will increase the heart rate. And a lot of times you can save one doing that. But yes, you learn a lot.
for sure, and we can be grateful for a lot of the modern technology that we have now today, because I can't even imagine the kind of struggles that had to be faced even back when
Oh
my
my
great
gosh.
grandmother was at it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm dang sure not tough enough to do it that way. So,
Okay, so now what I want to get into and have you talk a little bit about is your interest and at what age you had an interest in bloodlines and pedigrees of the horses.
goodness. Well, okay, so I got to go back before pedigrees. It was actually my mom who got me started in riding when I was 3. Because even in Germany, we lived out in the middle of nowhere in a little town called Salabeuren with a total of 3 houses and no little kids. So my mom hauled me to a riding barn that was a little ways down the road, and I started riding lessons on Shetland ponies. And my theory on that is if the Shetland ponies don't drive you away from horses, they make you addicted to them for life. Um, but when we moved over here, the ranch that we moved to had a breeding program. And to this day, I remember sitting there. The guy that owned the place had a leather folder, and it had all the registration papers in it. And I would, any chance I would get, I would sit and flip through that folder, and I would look at the pedigrees. And I'm not near as good about it anymore, but I could tell you, you could name a horse and I could tell you 10 to 12 generations back, every name on that pedigree. And I didn't necessarily know which pedigrees I liked, but I knew all of the foundation lines, and I knew what they did with all of them. And it was just I love that. I could do that for hours and hours and hours every day. And I've always told myself one of these days I wanted to have a folder with some of those pedigrees in it.
A folder of your own.
A folder of my own, my very
Yes.
own. And so now, quite a few years back, 30 something years back or forward, I have one of those dang folders. It's not a fancy leather one, but it's a ridiculously thick folder that I keep all my pedigrees in of my mares and all my babies and everything. But it's been really fun. I've also saved all the, it's kind of fun and kind of sad if you think about it, but of all the horses I've had that I've lost over the years. So when I started with my breeding program, or I guess I should backtrack, I was doing a lot of buying and selling horses. I guess, how in depth do you want me to go to this? Because it
Let's
all
go.
circles around. So I should backtrack. I've always ridden, even when I was in high school. I've always been around the horses, and we've used them on the ranch and all of that. And I showed in 4-H, and I actually had an Arabian gelding that we brought from Germany with us that I showed all through 4-H. And in 99, I was in a car wreck, and I was not able to work for the summer. And a very dear friend of mine, who was my high school science teacher, had it kind of interweaved. So in high school, my senior year, she was my science teacher, and she asked me to do a science project. And I was really not into the science project, but she asked me, and there might have been a little bribery involved. And I did a science project, and one of the deals, or the bribery involved, so to speak, was that she had a really, really fancy little reining mare. And she's like, I'll make you a deal. You put some effort into the science project, and I'll let you ride that mare. Well, say no more. Needless to say, I put effort into that science project, won the regional, won state, and took it on to the international science fair because I was going to ride that little reining mare.
She knew
And
how to get through to you.
Oh, instantly. And there is something about the fact that when you lay your reins down on a horse's neck, cross your arms, and send her down the arena in a dead run and say, whoa, and they drag their butt bigger than nothing, it's an instant drug. You're addicted, and you might as well just face it. So that got me really hooked. When I got into the car wreck in 99, I couldn't work for the summer. And that same friend said, told me, why don't you come out to the ranch and just spend the summer out there and show my little reining mare and just recoup. So that's what I did, which in turn got me even more addicted.
Yeah. But
So
it was
I left.
also very healing for you, I'm sure.
Oh,
It's exactly
it,
what you needed.
insanely. It was exactly what I needed. Um, Now the only problem came about is I got to drive the Cadillac. Now I went back to my little Tonka truck. And I'm like, well, okay, I know what I want. I have no way to be able to afford what I want.
Yeah.
So how do we get to that?
Yeah.
So at the time I was day working a lot, and I ended up partnering with one of the ranchers I day worked with, and we bought and sold quite a few horses. And so what I did is I would go to a lot of the nicer performance horse sales, or I shouldn't say nicer performance horse sales. They were the sales in the areas where they had a lot of nice performance horses. So a lot of the, I'm going to say, junk reiners. It's probably not the right way to put it, but essentially a lot of the horses that just weren't good enough to cut it in that high level of competition, that's where they ended up. And I picked up a lot of horses that either just weren't good enough for the level of the level of competition they had to compete at, or they were maybe a little blown up and it wasn't working anymore. And so what I did is I got them picked up and I went and day worked on them. And there is nothing about miles and no hammering and no pushing and just miles behind cows and riding through cows and wet saddle blankets that does amazing things for their mind.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but also being able to shop in that area of the reining discipline that I really, really loved, it allowed me to ride a lot of horses that they had a stop to them, they had a turnaround to them, they had a lead change to them, but it wasn't, like I said, at the level where it needed to be, but it allowed me to feel what it was supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
And I'd play with that and I'd get the feel for it and everything. And so, not to talk for hours, what happened is I got to the point where I really enjoyed those horses and I learned so much. But I got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to fix other people's screw ups. Or I don't want to fix, I want the one that's good enough. Or I want the one that doesn't have any problems.
But finding yourself in this place of one man's trash, another man's treasure, allowed you to
100%.
really be able to place yourself and consider what you truly wanted to go for next.
Exactly. And aside from that too, it's just even trying to fix a lot of what was there, it really allows you to feel it. And you have to take it apart and understand it and figure it out. And there's a lot of stuff I screwed up. But when you screw it up and you own it, you got to fix it before you can sell it. So it was just a really good learning process. And when I got to that point, I'm like, you know what? I want a couple of brood mares and I want a couple of babies and I want to start my own. I want to be able to start from scratch with a clean slate and I want to make my own. And in that process, I had figured out kind of the bloodlines that I liked. And even though there's a lot of the reining bloodlines I like, the thing that I figured out more than the reiners, I love the cow horses because they got to be able to watch a cow. I'm like, it's just part of day working and they so much easier when they see the cow. Um, so that's what I started out with my mares is I was looking for cowbred bloodlines. I was absolutely 100% in love with Smart Chickalina, Smart Chickalina, Smart Little Lena, anything like that. I was all over that. But then comes the part again, I knew I couldn't afford the mares that I wanted. So on the hunt, and this took me probably close to 10 years, I was able to find mares that were either older mares or they had some issues getting them in foal, or just different scenarios where I was able to pick up the bloodlines that I wanted, but they were, so to speak, not working for where they were at. So they were kind of being discarded. So I was able to pick up the bloodlines that I wanted for really, really reasonable prices.
And this is a really worthwhile hunt. And this is what, really gets me interested about hearing your story, because this is the kind of hunt that my father has gone on to find the broodmares that he has. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I love this. This is so interesting to me.
So that's kind of how it all started. And then of course I might have gone overboard for a little bit, and I had like 20 something mares, and they produced every year. And anyway, that's a whole different story.
Yes, they
But
do.
long story short, my stud horse at the time, and there's kind of two things that come into play. Um, my stud horse that I had at the time, from before I got him, had some issues with his joints. He had a chip in there, and at the time, again, just wasn't able to afford to go do the surgery to get that taken out. Um, so later on in life, it gave him issues, and it created a lot of arthritis and things like that. And I got to the point, and I was actually living in Idaho at the time, and it was cold in the winter. And he had a lot of trouble getting up and down. And I was at the point where I'm like, I need to do something. And I had tried all these different supplements and everything, and I wasn't finding a solution, and I was not willing to quit on him yet. But I've always been really big on quality of life. So if it's not fair to him, I need to just suck it up and not think about myself, and I need to do what's right for him. But I just wasn't quite ready yet. So it was cold. And anyway, I got to doing a lot of researching and things like that. And my mom, who is actually, even though she's the one that started me in the horses, it was my dad that was really passionate about horses. And my mom was scared to death of horses. But so I was kind of talking to her about that. And she just chuckles and she's like, honey, look to nature. Whatever your belief, somebody had it figured out. What they need is in nature. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
I like that.
And yeah, I'm like, okay, let me think about this some more. Anyway, so it was actually at that point that Excel supplement started, which we hadn't touched on, but that's kind of one of
Oh,
my
we're
big.
going to.
um, and then circling back around to the breeding part, he was exactly what I wanted. I loved his conformation, a little bit more of the older foundation, when you think of the quarter horse, the true quarter horse, the big hip, solid legs, big foot, pretty little head, keen neck. He had a ton of stop to him, was really cowy. And the cool thing about him is he was so chill. He was just so chill and so easygoing and so laid back, really a little bit opposite from his bloodline. So he was Shining Spark and Smart Little Lena, which should have been a little stingier. So I ended up breeding all these older mares that I had gathered up all to him. And I raised probably, I'd have to pull the AQHA record, but I probably raised close to 100 babies out of him. And another friend of mine and I have talked about this a lot. He was so consistent about what he produced. Like it was the same thing. It didn't matter what you breed them to. They all were stamped the same, and they all had the same personality. Nothing wanted to be bronky or silly or stupid. They were all a little bit more on the laid back side. You could totally easy fire them up, but the second you stopped asking, they just immediately came back down. And so I ended up one of the babies out of him, or by him, out of a daughter of Bob Aker Doc that was out of a daughter of Doc's Alibi. So cow and all around bred. I kept that baby, and he was probably about 3 or 4 months old. And I remember I had somebody come by and they were like, I want that one. And I'm like, yep, hell will freeze over first because he's going to be something special. And so that is Iseo Docs, my alibi, is who I just always call him little man, because when he was little, he was a little man, and he's still my little man. But that's actually my stud now that all of my babies are out of. And so the thing that I have done, which I think makes my deal a little bit unique, is the fact, through all the research of bloodlines and looking at all that, when you go back to the foundation, you have a lot of line breeding. And I had an old cowboy once tell me, it's line breeding when it works, and it's inbreeding when it doesn't work. So going against the grain, that is exactly what I did. Is I kept back about 5 or 6 of my Seo daughters, and those mares, like I said, they're exactly what I want. They have a tremendous amount of bone, huge hips, pretty heads, keen necks. I'm a sucker. I like something that collects and bridles up and everything. So I like a clean throat latch. And they're just super cool mares in my book.
How long do you think this is going to be your little thing?
I don't know. Like I said, I have 6 of my Seo daughters, and the youngest one she is 7 now, 7 or 8. So I'm not quite sure. I've thought about that some.
Well, the reason why I ask is it's for my own selfish reasons, because as I sit here in Idaho waiting for our property in Texas to sell, we'll head to Kansas and we'll buy out the ranch that my dad has, that his dad had started. And so I'll take the reins over on a 3rd generation breeding program. And, sitting here, hearing your conversation and so much of, how my dad describes everything. And of course, I've been home last year and I got to help with some of the breeding. And it's just something that I'm truly looking forward to and that I'm excited about. But it's also a part of the equestrian world that I lack experience in. And so, I'm going to need a lot of his mentorship. And, I'm truly looking forward to that. But also the opportunity to connect with people, connecting with you, and Excel Supplements is a big part of that. And again, we're still going to get into that. But I asked that question because I'm sitting here hopeful that, it's for a good amount of time, because I'm going to want to pick your ear and your brain over things, I can already tell.
Oh, and it's like, you're so fortunate because it's 3rd generation. Like, how cool is that, through the generations? So it's so cool that you have your dad to keep doing that breeding program with and everything. So that's pretty awesome. The biggest piece of advice like that I've learned over the years is just dive in. You're going to screw up stuff and then you fix it.
And now a topic Tabitha and I both love. Let's talk about Excel Supplements.
Right. I can talk about that forever. And, it's so, I kind of told you already how that started. I needed something that would help my stud horse out. And I wanted something natural. Everybody's choice, what they want to use. I wanted something natural. And so that's kind of where camelina oil entered the picture. Very similar to flaxseed oil, except the main difference is that it is high in vitamin E and really high in natural antioxidants. So your shelf life, unlike flax, for instance, is you have a minimum of 2 years shelf life.
Yeah.
And so again, through meeting some really amazing people that had done a ton of research in camelina. And I mean, all the way back to, and I can talk about this for hours, so I'll try to condense it. But in a nutshell, there's so many varieties of camelina, and different varieties. Essentially, I don't want to say they're all the same, but I mean they're all camelina, but
Right.
different varieties have different properties and more bioavailability and all of that. So I was very lucky to meet some amazing people that had been researching camelina for a long time and had been crossbreeding camelina varieties on a non-GMO basis. So going all the way back to the seed.
The
So
seed, yes.
yeah.
And
So
that's just for people that don't realize or know this. I mean, the oil is extracted from the seed of the camelina plant, right?
correct. Yes. So you have your camelina plant and you harvest the seed, you cold press the seed to extract the oil, and that is the base ingredient of Excel supplements, or the company is Excel supplements. We have two, well, actually three core products. We have our Excel EQ, our Excel EQ Pro Elite, and then our Excel Canine, which clearly is for dogs. So
Thankfully.
yes, exactly. So I mean, it kind of just uh, it just kind of fell into place. And but with that, the cool thing about it is that we've been able to control the whole process, like everything that goes into the product, from the breeding of the seed, or the crossbreeding of the seed, to the final product. And something that's super unique about Excel, and we actually talked about it in our Tuesday tip today, is that um, the thing about it is when you cold press camelina oil, the idea is you want to cold press it because you don't want to break the fatty acid chains. Because once you break the fatty acid chains, doesn't matter how much omega-3 you have in there, it's no good if you break the fatty acid chains. So um, you want to cold press it to assure that you don't break it. But the more you can push the envelope and the warmer you can cold press it, the more of the camelina polyphenols you get out of the oil.
Nice.
So the thing is, if you push that just a little bit too far, then you've screwed up a whole batch of oil.
Yeah.
So something that's really unique about us is we are able to extract the camelina polyphenols out of the husk and then suspend it back into the oil. So not only do we have all of the benefits of the cold pressed camelina oil, but we have the additional from the camelina polyphenols that we take out of the husk and put back into
Nice.
the oil. So that's pretty neat on our regular EQ. Our Pro Elite, we've taken it one step further, and we actually extract tritipines from the skin of the olive. And something that's unique about them is, I mean, you with your health journey, you probably are, and nutrition and all of that, you're very familiar also with the benefits of olive oil and olive in general. Well, the problem is olive oil is high in omega-6. Omega-6 is pro inflammation. We want high omega-3. So by extracting those olive tritipines, I hope I said that the last time too. By extracting those olive tritipines, we take out all the good of the olive and we leave everything behind that we don't need, including the omega-6. So we take that and we suspend it back into our original Excel. So it just increases all the benefits. You have more omega-3s to omega-6 and more anti-inflammatory properties with that. But the other thing that's really cool is that one of the components of the olive tritipines is now I'm going to have it all over the place, is macilinic acid. Macilinic acid actually helps in muscle development, healthy muscle development. So for
This is
instance,
why it's so important for our foals.
for really, I feed the Pro Elite to everything.
Yeah.
Because I want the muscle development. So I feed it to the babies. I feed it to the younger horses, horses in training when you're struggling with the top line. I love it there because it promotes that healthy natural muscle development. There is nothing to me, there is nothing more fun than having somebody that is struggling with something and you can go, here, feed this for 30 days.
Yeah.
And you will see a difference.
Yeah. And when I got it and shipped it to my dad's ranch, one of the things that I was telling him was, because he was like, well, who do you want to have it? And I was like, I want the studs to have it. I want the brood mares to have it. We still have one colt that we haven't sold from last year. And,
Yeah.
I told him, go ahead and get Junior put on it.
Yeah.
But the mares are bred. And, they'll start foaling in February, I think it is. February, we'll have March and April babies as well. But what I was explaining to him was that it's going to benefit each one. Now, what I love about for just the brood mares is the fact that it's going to actually help with the birthing.
Yes.
Yes. Really good for like eye and brain health as well, right?
Yeah. And it just
And
literally, I always say it's for the entire horse
yeah,
because it doesn't just hit one area. It's the entire horse.
but the EPA and DHA is what's going to benefit a lot of that, right?
Correct. And so something that's really, I have a lot of discussion about this, and I haven't had it in quite a while. So, um, but so every form of omega-3 fatty acids, and probably of six too. Like I said, I haven't had this conversation in quite a while. Is ALA? It's plant based. All omega-3 is plant based. The DHA and the EPA comes actually, like when humans take it, we take it from fish oil. And
Right.
it's not that the fish produces it, but the fish eats the algae, which is high in ALA, and then converts it. And essentially, we squished a fish and we squished the converted stuff out of it. So our body doesn't have to convert it. So something I hear so much is, well, yeah, but this is why we should feed fish oil to horses because it's already converted and they don't have to convert it. You're 100% correct. They
That's
don't
what
have.
my holistic nutrition courses were teaching. Yes. And
Yes.
trust me,
So
they didn't teach us about camelina oil.
I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth, but very few vets will say the same because science said it is 100% logical to feed the converted form because the work is already done. So they are going to benefit the most out of that. But here's the flip side of that. And again, whether religious or not, or whoever or whatever, that's your business. But somebody had all this figured out. And horses, if you look at a horse's diet, like the horses that are out, and that brings on a whole nother soapbox, but the horses that going back when they were out in the wild, not influenced by humans, whether it be restriction in grazing areas or any of it, they were fine. They were getting along just fine. So that tells you that they were getting the nutrition they needed from the food that they were eating. Removing human interaction, how often were horses in a field of grain consuming high omega-6? Well, not very likely. Um, how many of the horses are eating grass? That's their main diet. Grass is high in plant-based omega-3, which is ALA. Their body is meant to convert it to what they need. How often do you see a horse run around with a fish in their mouth to get their omega-3? Doesn't happen that much.
Not going to happen, no.
And then with all the science and all of that, because I'm not discrediting any of that, the thing that gets me every time is, that's fine. You definitely have a point. ALA is already converted, and it's higher absorbed and all of that good stuff, then why am I getting the results that I'm seeing when I feed Excel? Plant-based, ALA-based omega-3. Clearly, the body is able to utilize it and convert it how it needs to get the results it needs.
One of the things that I'm a big believer that should fall into place is, as far as an approach to horsemanship goes and supplementation, is fitness.
Yes.
And you and I got together just yesterday and we did a fitness session together. So let's talk a little bit about that and how that experience was for you.
Well, let me tell you, I can feel more today than I do after riding for 5-6 hours. Not a problem.
And
I'm
why do you think
more.
that is?
Well, it might have been what we discussed about all those silly muscle groups that I don't use on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But so I actually want to take that opportunity and brag on you a little bit because I am so bad about consistency when it comes to myself. Horse is totally different thing.
Right.
And about exercising and healthy. And I mean, I want the body of a, supermodel goddess. But I'm not willing to invest the time that it takes. And by God, when there is a slice of good cheesecake, it's going to get ate and it's going to go straight to my ass. But with that said, I am literally so excited about what you're doing on your end, because what you showed me yesterday was so simple. I did it this morning. I whined a little, but it was just, there is so much value in such a short, condensed, quick, get it done, fit it into your busy lifestyle. And the fact that you actually got on FaceTime with me and we had the chance to talk about it, and the fact that you made sure I was in the correct position and wasn't just, you know, half-assing it across there, made such a huge difference because I, for
It
one, I'm
does.
really visual. So seeing it,
Yeah.
level, makes all the difference in the world. And I think that what you're doing there is such a cool thing and is so beneficial to, regardless of in the horse industry or not, to so many people. And so I've been a little bit of a health journey as well,
Yes, you
on just
have.
trying to take care of myself a little better, because it's funny how we spend all the money and all the time in the world taking care of our horses but not ourselves. Um, so it doesn't matter what the industry is. These are all things that I think are so beneficial, and your approach in it, I love it. I love
Well,
the fact that it's affordable, it's fun, it's easy, it's quick, it fits in anywhere. You don't need a bunch of stuff.
I love how you say that you love it. That has me very, very excited. And I was so appreciative of your honesty with me yesterday and the questions that you brought forth
Yeah.
and how we really got to hit on the topic of misconceptions that are
Yeah.
going to go through people's minds, equestrian riders' minds, and as far as performance goes. And so I think for both of us, we both gained a lot in that session together, and that's what I aim to do with each individual that I want to be working with. And before we close the gates, I would like to highlight Tabitha's deep passion for photography. Her keen eye for detail allows her to capture the unique movements and tones of horses in a way that truly reflect their spirit. Additionally, I want to acknowledge her contributions to my new podcast intro. The stunning photos featured are all her original work, showcasing her incredible talent and artistic vision. I just think that you're truly valuable, and you have resources and knowledge that I think I can benefit from and that I would love to learn more about through you and from you. But overall, I feel like just in the last couple of months since we've met, I have a new friend, a new horse friend.
I agree, and I so appreciate you and all of that. And I mean it's the same right back at you. Is like you can never have too many badass women in your life,
That's
and I'm
right.
just so thankful to add another one to that. So
All right. Well, this kicked ass just like I knew it would. I was so looking forward to this.
I was so nervous about it. I'm not gonna lie. I was trying to think of ways to get out of it, and I'm so glad I didn't.
Oh, good. Well, then I challenged you and you made your way through. So,
Yes, ma'am. So, well, perfect.
okay. Well, we're going to stay in touch. Absolutely. 100%.